history, there's most likely someone with autism. So there's that genetic factor. There's an environmental factor, which we don't know exactly what it is. There's also just neurological connectivity, how your brain is connected. That plays a factor too. So we currently don't know exactly what it is, but we do know that that is who the child is.
Earlier on, you mentioned something to the effect of a spectrum, and I want us to piggyback on that, looking at there could be somebody in the family with autism. Does it mean there is a spectrum where we are immediately able to say this person on this scale, definitely this is autism, and therefore that's why other people could actually have it, and it's not easy for others to then pick that there's autism here?
Yes, so we talk about autism as being an autism spectrum disorder or difference, right? On that spectrum, there is, you will find that there are kids who may not have words, may not be able to communicate verbally, may have a lot of behaviors where they're not well regulated. They may not, they may present with what we call repetitive or stereotypical behaviors, where maybe they rock back and forth, they flap their hands, they jump. These kids may need a high level of support, meaning that ko lapeng go tlhoka go tlhapisiwa, go jesiwa, go direlwa dilo tse dintsi. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, you may see someone who also has autism spectrum disorder, but they can communicate verbally. They might have social awkwardness where they have difficulties with social skills or understanding social rules. They may be also show those repetitive movements, but they might be not as obvious. Ba kgona go itshwara gongwe motho a batla go tlola mme a kgona go nna helana a itshwara ba communicate right, and those people may need a lower level of support.
Now let's just talk about autism in Botswana. Where are we able to speak to the numbers? Are we able to speak to how spread it is? And of course, our understanding as a people of autism.
Thank you. What I can say is that the condition is growing. We are seeing a lot of kids. We are seeing a lot of parents coming forth saying, my child is displaying these symptoms. And bana ba bantsi ba ileng gore bana le autism, and jaka setsa buile o mongwe tlabe e lo tlhoka nthuso e tseneletseng, and the other one e lo kgonang gore a kgone go tsena sekolo, then a ba go lemoga go ngatsetsa ba le bo form 1 bo form 2 bona gore ba this child o na le challenge ha se se bo this child is autistic.
Okay. I want to ask again, because we really don't know. We speak to a number of factors. At what point are we? You mentioned that a child we could actually tell at a very late stage. But typically, at what point are you able to speaking from the numbers that are growing? Typically, at what point are parents able to say there's a problem here? Let's seek help, and then it turns out to be autism.
Okay, usually when the child turns 2-3, because the child with autism develops from the younger stage or months as normal as other kids. Then when they reach the age of 2-3, that's when you realize that, here there is a problem. The first one will be lack of communication. When the child is supposed to be communicating using words, now the child will start pointing, will be not communicating as the peers. That's when you start notice that this child has a problem. And gantsi bana ba teng ba tshameka ba le nosi, so tle bona le ngwana but ngwana ona ga khatlhegele go tshameka le ba bangwe, and gantsi ngwana o mo lemoga gore gongwe the way a tshamekang ka teng gantsi ba tlhomaganya di-toy ga ba di tshamekise jaaka di tshwanetse gore di tshamekisiwe. So ke gone gantsi ngwana a leng bo 2-3, that's when you realize that there is a problem.
Okay. Now, we are here to talk about World Autism Day, which was commemorated today, I understand, at Tsholofelo Park. It's 17 years after you know, it was first observed, and really we are talking about it in order to raise awareness and really speak to what we see out in the world and what we see in Botswana, and perhaps even what we can borrow from outside. Earlier you were talking about what your experiences from outside as well. Just speak to us about why it is important for us, why the United Nations found it important for us to be commemorating this type of day.
To be honest, you asked a very important question about identification. Early identification is key. How so ngwana is delayed in their speaking, in their development, and the first person to usually see it is the parent. You might not know what it is, but you might see, no, my child is developing differently from my sister's child. They were talking and all of a sudden they don't have speech. They were able to do certain things. They were able to look at me and smile. Now they can't even look at me. When I call their name, they don't turn to look at me. So early intervention is key. When we raise awareness, then we're able to make sure that parents seek the right support. When parents seek the right support, they're able to get the right intervention and the right supports. Because what do we do know is that when kids are identified early, get interventions early, they can thrive and they can be successful contributing members of society.
So I think that also then leads us to the next set of questions now. We're talking about sustainable development goals.
Yes.
And really these are speaking to inclusion, speaking to ensuring that there's access to all, ending poverty, quality education, work, and being involved in the economy. Just speak to us a bit about how you envision this taking shape and where we are first as a country before we talk to where we are as part of the global community.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. When looking at these goals, they are talking about inclusion. So, for example, let's look at the education goal for goal number 4, ensure inclusive and quality education and promote lifelong living opportunities for all. So it is very important for our kids to be included in the education system, but are they included? Yes, we have special schools, but do we have schools for autistic kids? We have, and again, when they graduate from these schools, what happens? Are they able to work? Are they able to be involved in the economy of this country? So, like sengwe se teng but ga ise re hitlhelele thata santse go na le tiro e ntsi e tshwanetse gore e diriwe ya ka gone ko dikolong or even before ngwana a tsena school, the assessment, the interventions are di teng. Batsadi ba itse go leke about this condition. How lo go sepatala go but this child is autistic, then what happens? Yena tiro ya gago as a parent go ipatlela the information. So and gona bo kete sorry go itse gore jano from here o ka dirang. So for your child to be included in the education system, you have to go and seek help by yourself, which sometimes is very difficult for other parents. So there's a lot to be done.
Okay. Let me just stick with you about the interventions that are there, and then families finding that it's up to you. What would you like to see happen? What sort of interventions would you like to see? Maybe let's just stick to at the point where you are told nyame ngwana o na le autism. What sort of interventions ideally would you want to see?
Okay, thank you for that question. Nna keletso ya me like ke gore ha ke bole ha ntse re bolelwa ke ba bongaka because o tlebise ngwana ko ngakeng gore ngwana ke nna ke bona dikaitse then a ba re nyame ngwana o na le autism. The parents should be told what to do next, because the doctor and is autistic, and also it takes time. When as a parent, 2 years, 3 years, then you go to the doctor and say, but let's try this, let's eliminate this, let's check if the child is hearing. Then, and that takes time. It can take up to 3 years. One is going to now be diagnosed at the age of 5 or 6. And that is the period. So you should be told, okay, the child is autistic. Now go to this office or go to this school. If I can give an example, if we have a child with hard of hearing, you know the schools to go to. If we have a child who is blind, you know the schools to go to. But with autism, it is very, very different because you don't know which schools to go to as an example. And again, we don't have those therapies. For example, speech therapy. You go to our local clinics, you go to the hospitals, they're not there. And again, you should be prepared mentally. You should be prepared. You should be prepared where this now is going to take from a lot from you, even the finances. You're going to need a lot of money to take care of this child. You should be prepared. There should be counseling for parents.
Okay. I think you mentioned a lot of things. I'm going to talk to you. I know that you're a therapist, but surely this is an area that you are experienced in. We are talking about good health, SDG number 3. That is at a point where we are saying the child is autistic. We're talking about quality education. Now, does the child have access to quality education? And we're saying these are the things that we need to look at. What I want to find out, any one of you can take this question, from a partnership perspective, from a policy perspective, what obtains on the ground? What sort of partnerships are there that are able to facilitate some of these things, and what policy frameworks exist around these?
So the government last year, December 2023, signed a bill for persons with disability bill, and this bill was to protect the rights of people with disabilities, to make sure that they have access to exactly what you talked about, that they have access to a quality education, that they have access to employment once they finish that education, that they have access to that daily living environment, whether it be churches, the shopping malls, that they're able to access and be included in their everyday lives. So that is a starting point. Obviously, we need collaboration from different stakeholders. We need collaboration from therapy providers. As Tshepiso said, that there are not enough providers. We need collaboration from private sectors for funding and fundraising. So everyone can be a stakeholder and contribute to this movement.
Okay. When we come back, we will continue our conversation with Autism Botswana, speaking to us about the World Autism Day commemoration.
We do the sugi. Me kakum bieno. Hasele su hela mazut. Kilele ngomo la mpelo le ro. Le tsitsiba nya mme. Ere garamadi. Ka gore ene ana la ponyo a di thola tsoganetso.
Ele tautona Dr. Mokgweetsi Masisi a bua le maloko a kereke ya ZCC ya St. Agnes le ba kwena ka kakaretso ba aba kgothatsa go ikokotlela ka tumelo le go baya tsotlhe mo modimong. Baemedi ba lefatshe la Botswana kwa mafatsheng a sele ba pheketse ba etetse tautona Masisi kwa ofising ya gagwe.
Our foreign policy is pretty much influenced by our domestic policy. Jan kana ke bone batho ba re ba rumileng ko ntle gore be gore tsaela malebela go batho ba bangwe kana go mahatseng a mangwe gore go diragala eng, so that they bring it home gore ba tla ba kgone gore ba re tlhabololle re le Batswana.
Mark Nawa le Chelsea Chakanyuka ba iponetse phatla mo legatong le le latelang la kgaisano ya ITF Under 18 J30 e tsweletseng mono Gaborone.
I think I played decent. I wasn't really impressed by my play. I know I could have done better. First set, I was a bit nervous.
I feel I played all right. It wasn't the best I've played since coming from the All Africa Games in Ghana. I played much better there, but I think it was just a matter of adjusting.
Dikgantse le tse dingwe di a latela kgantele jaana ka nako ya bosupa le Benson Phuthego. Re tsweledisa puisano ya rona le Tshepiso Bani a senosi ana le Dr. Senewa Moyo ba tswa ko Autism Botswana ba bua le rona ka bolwetse bo ba autism gore mme re le lehatshe mo Botswana re dira jang bolwetse jo re ithuta go le kanang kana re buitse go le kanang re bua jalo gone gore from a framework I met on editing and in the sort of partnership ono sa go tlhalosa yalo ka molao e leng gore o ne wa signiwa jalo mme gape wa bua ka the private sector and other entities gore they also need to come on board. Re ka re is this something that's fairly new gore gongwe ga re itse bolwetse jo ke ka mong gongwe batho ba sa itseng gore tota re thusa jang le ha re tla ka ditlamelo re tla ka ditlamelo tsa mohuta mang?
Ke tsa gore boletse ga bo bontšha ke gore bone ka bone one can say it is very complicated because ya ka re buile it is a spectrum bana ba teng ga ba tshwane mo gongwe ga o tla ka ditlamelo o tlamela bana ba ileng gore ba tlhoka thuso e tseneletseng go na le ba bangwe ba ileng gore ga ba tlhoke thuso eo e leng gore o tla ka yone so gantsi ga go nne motlhogo go tlamela bana ba autism because bone ka bo bone ga ba tshwane and e nngwe ka nna gone gore ga re se re itse mo go tseneletseng ka bolwetse ya ka ke bua gore bona ga bobosha bone bontse bo le teng hela ke gore ga re na kitso e tseneletseng ka bone bolwetse.
Dr. Moyo wena o tla ka experience e tswang go le hatseng la Botswana, what are other people doing?
So I just want to commend Botswana because we have laid the foundation, we've started. There's still a long way to go, but I do want to commend Botswana because today what we saw is we saw some partnerships, even though we need more. We saw a community of family that came together to learn more about autism. We saw volunteers come. We saw sponsors give packages and gifts that would go a long way. But there's still a lot that we have to do. As Autism Botswana, as a community of parents, caregivers, professionals who work on a daily basis with autistic people, we know that we need programs. We need, as we mentioned, that autism is a difference in how the brain works, right? What we've learned is that sometimes what autistic kids need, the schools cannot provide. So we need those tailored programs so that they're also able to have a quality education just like their peers.
Now, in the UN Secretary General's speech, Mr. Antonio Guterres, he actually underscored the need to promote acceptance and appreciation of autistic people and their contribution to society. Let's just talk about Autism Botswana first. What it is that you are doing to support those autistic people. What it is that we are doing to support the families, what it is that we are doing to advance policy and advocate for such.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. As Autism Botswana, we are doing a lot, or one can say we are trying. First of all, doing advocacy for people living with autism. Re leka go ba buelela, re leka go batla dithuso, re leka go batla partnership, re leka go tswa mantswe a bone jaaka setse re buile gore ke bana ba ileng gore bontsi jwa bone ga ba kgone go itira sepe. Not only the kids only, even the parents. Mo go gona bokete mo motsadi mo ileng gore le go kopa thuso ga a kgone go itse gore o ka kopa thuso kae. Like I said, mo gongwe you are just told your child is autistic and we don't know where to go. So that's where we come in. We we tell them about the services that are there. Or we can go and register the child. We can go and do assessment ACRC for school placement. You can look into other schools and to raise awareness gore bana if go na le di intervention ba ka kgona go dira ba ka kgona go itirela le bone ka bo bone, so ile gone ya la go tshwarana ka mabotsogo as batsadi. And also it is very important to know that Autism Botswana, the board ke batsadi ba bana ba le autism, because se tlhako se ba la morwadi, so ke yona re itseng dikgwetlho tse re diralang. So go nna motlhogo gore re kgone go tshwarana ka matsogo, re kgone gore re buisanye, and also just to share information gore nna ke kgone se mo se sorry, and that other parent will give you a gore ene o kgonne jang. So ke kgone hala mo as Autism Botswana.
Okay, I'm going to come to you because I asked you a question earlier and you said let's applaud Botswana and where they are, and you still didn't tell us what you see out there. But I'm asking you this question and I want you to look at it vis-a-vis what you've seen elsewhere as well. The theme for this is stories of empowerment. She just talked about that support that you parents and families give one another, of course, with Autism Botswana at the forefront as well. And stories of empowerment, challenges faced and the victories that have been achieved. Let's first talk about what came out, highlights as far as this theme is concerned that came out today.
Yeah, so we really do acknowledge the real challenges that parents of autistic children face. One of the main factor that came up was the financial impact. For most families, you start from diagnosis, you now need to get services. Those services cost money. You need programs that continue to engage and challenge that child. Those need money. You're told to go here and there. You know that the environment may not be conducive to your child thriving. So you're always looking and paying. And not everyone has those means. Not everyone is able to have the financial means to start from the time the child is diagnosed, whether it's at 2 or 6, all the way until that adult, to be able to support them and also facilitate that transition into the work environment if that's the path that they're going. So there's a real financial implication. There's isolation, which is a real implication because a lot of people don't understand why our kids behave the way they behave. We talked about some of those things that you can observe that may be indicators of autism, such as jumping up and down, flapping your hands, rocking back and forth. Some people look at your child and they think therefore you don't want to go out in public, you hide your child. So there's that implication where society almost pushes you to the corner. There's lack of access. Most schools in Botswana are still not prepared. So when they do accept and are able to take in those kids with special needs, you might find that they don't have a special education teacher. So they're relying on general education teachers who may not be trained to work with those kids to make sure that they continue to grow, develop, and thrive. You find that there's no funding to facilitate workshops so that they develop those skills. So that there's a real impact there across the board, across the lifespan.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. I think it's been fantastic talking to you and actually bringing awareness to autism, that it's really people who think differently from us. Therefore, how you speak to them and how you get to engage them is slightly different from how we would normally engage, and that it's quite important to ensure that we include them in all aspects of life. Thank you so much to Autism Botswana for the fantastic work that you do and for the awareness you've given us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
That was our conversation with Ms. Tshepiso Bani, the acting chairperson of Autism Botswana, as well as Dr. Senewa Moyo, who is a volunteer therapist at Autism Botswana, giving us all the information that we need. But I do believe that there's still more that we need to learn. So let's get cracking, find as much information as we can, and provide support to those that require support when they do have children and family members that are autistic.
The road to destiny is not paved with brick and tar, but with vision and determination that unveil over time who we truly are when we get there. The Ministry of Transport and Public Works has embarked on a journey of transformation to enhance the efficiency of transport system in the Greater Gaborone area. This journey of the Greater Gaborone Urban Transport Improvement Project is funded by the Government of Botswana, assisted by the World Bank and OPEC Fund for International Development. The ideas adopted through this transport improvement project will for the next 25 years transform Greater Gaborone to a mobile compact city based on concepts of urban transport development in relation to land settlement and use. Wasting no time and without a moment to spare, the Government of Botswana, through the Ministry of Transport and Public Works, initiated the construction of 3 bridges or overhead crosses along the KT Motseta Drive, Western Bypass. At the junction with Lobatse Road, Game City Circle, Willie Siboni Road, BTV Circle, and Kudumatse Drive, Rainbow Circle. The installation and operation of new modernized traffic signals